The emergency session was convened in absolute silence because sound itself had become the galaxy's most terrifying weapon. Every delegate on the Galactic Council now understood the horrifying truth. Human music wasn't art. It was a primal neurological assault. The bass frequencies in their simplest drum patterns triggered a cascading fear response in every known alien nervous system. What humans called a dance beat was, to the rest of the universe, a weapon of mass disruption. The ruling body had just passed Resolution Alpha 9, declaring all human rhythmic audio a Class 4 psychological armament. The discovery wasn't made on a battlefield, but in a cultural exchange lab when a xenobiologist played a pop song from Earth. Within 45 seconds, every non-human test subject exhibited severe neurological distress. Their peaceful galaxy had just learned that humanity's most universal language was, in fact, a toxin. And the first diplomatic ship from Earth was already entering the system. For Delegate Kalan of the Zithian hegemony, the emergency vote was just another procedural farce. His species had evolved on a world of constant, catastrophic seismic activity. Their entire biology was tuned to predict and survive planetary violence. To them, the gentle hum of a starship engine registered as silent, profound peace. The idea that sound could be weaponized was not just alien to him, it was biologically absurd. The Galactic Council was a mosaic of such evolutionary miracles, each member race a product of its own unique and almost universally serene cradle. The Jathal Combine evolved in silent, sun-drenched coral forests, the Glev from a world of soft magnetic winds. For millions of years, the development of intelligence in the galaxy had followed a single, peaceful rule. Only in stable, quiet environments could complex neural networks safely form. Sound was a background signal, never a threat. Their auditory ranges were narrow, their cultures built on soft-toned language and harmonic, unstructured ambient noise. This was the foundational truth the Council held sacred, until the Tikar incident. A Jathal research vessel, the Asterisk Whisper of Dawn Asterisk, had made first contact with humanity in the Orion Spur. Initial scans of Earth showed a planet well within acceptable parameters for intelligent life. Slightly higher gravity, a vibrant biosphere, a species with a notable history of intraspecies conflict, but nothing the Council hadn't seen once before with the notoriously combative VAR. Protocol dictated a cultural and biological exchange before formal introduction. The Jathal xenologist, Scholar Vreen, saw an opportunity. Human data packets included vast libraries of their artistic expressions, a concept the galaxy understood well. Vreen selected a file tagged Cultural Primer, Rhythmic Foundation. His aim was harmless, to understand the baseline auditory environment of human development. The file contained a 3-minute audio track titled Basic Drum Sequence Practice Loop. It was, by human standards, mundanity itself. A simple, repeating pattern of a struck membrane, a steady 1-2-3-4 beat at 120 pulses per minute. Scholar Vreen, along with a standard interspecies focus group of 12 delegates from other council races, played it in a secured lab. The reaction was not just immediate, it was systemic. The Glev delegates' photosynthesis plates flushed with stress pigments, and it began vibrating uncontrollably. The Jathal observer, Vreen himself, felt his respiratory spiracles clamp shut in a primal fear response. His neural ganglia flooded with panic signals misinterpreted as imminent tectonic collapse. The Zithian monitor, whose job was to remain detached, reported a surge in adrenal analogues so violent it triggered a defensive calcification of its outer shell. All this within the first 18 seconds. The final report, classified under Galactic Security Directive Sigma, read like a medical horror log. The human rhythmic pattern, specifically the combination of the percussive transient, the hit, and the subsequent low-frequency resonance, acted as a universal neurological key. It bypassed all higher cognitive processing in every non-human subject. It directly stimulated the amygdala equivalent, the most ancient fear center of the brain, while simultaneously inducing a state of neural dysregulation similar to severe epileptic preconditioning. The steady, predictable tempo was the worst part. It created a phenomenon the xenoneurologists termed rhythmic entrainment, forcing alien brainwaves to sync to its pulse, amplifying the distress signal with every beat. Humanity's music, Their songs, their drums, their bass lines weren't art. They were a cascading series of precisely tuned neurological commands that screamed asterisk danger to every other complex nervous system in the galaxy. Delegate Kalan had scoffed at the report. His people heard the deep rumble of continents grinding together from birth. What was a little drum, but as the data streamed in, a chilling picture formed. Human history was saturated with this weapon they were oblivious to. They used it in celebration, in mourning, to coordinate labor, to incite crowds. Their young calibrated their motor functions to it. Their entire concept of social bonding was intertwined with shared, rhythmic auditory experience. They had literally evolved to crave the very signal that caused other species agony. The emergency session was called to vote on Resolution Alpha 9, the declaration of all human rhythmic audio as a Class 4 psychological armament, and the immediate quarantine of Earth's broadcast media. The human diplomatic vessel, the *Un's Curiosity*, was days away, its arrival announced. They were coming, blithely unaware, likely carrying libraries of their culture, their music. Kalan voted yea with the majority, a procedural necessity, but privately he was furious. It was a panic response. The Council, in its terror, had skipped the most critical question. Humanity didn't no asterisk. They weren't launching sonic attacks. They were waving what they thought were flowers. Declaring their unknowing behavior an act of war was the height of irrationality. It would force a conflict with a species that, the VAR aside, had more documented combat experience than the rest of the Council combined. He was tasked, as the delegate from the most robust species, with leading the first contact quarantine protocol. He would meet the human delegation at the transfer station, ensure all their systems were audited and scrubbed of prohibited audio files, and deliver the galaxy's verdict. He stood now in the sterile docking bay, his Zithian senses detecting the subtle shiver in the station's superstructure as the Curiosity completed its final approach. His mandibles tightened. He had reviewed the human delegate's profile. Dr. Aris Thorne, xenomusicologist. The man's entire life's work was the study of sound. He was coming to share it. The airlock door hissed, its pressure seals releasing with a deep thunk that resonated in Kalan's bones. The inner door slid open. A human stepped through, wearing a simple diplomatic suit, a genuine, open smile on its face. In its hand, it carried a small, ornate case. Dr. Thorne extended the case forward, a gesture of greeting. Delegate Kalan, the human said, its voice translated to a soft Zithian chime. A pleasure, a small token from Earth, a sampling of our most foundational musical instruments so you may hear the sounds of our home. Kalan's primary heart skipped a hydraulic cycle. He stared at the case. He hadn't ordered a physical search. The security scan had focused on data files. The case was lined with a neutral polymer, blocking simple scanners. It could contain anything. Before he could invoke a security protocol, Dr. Thorne, with a sociable eagerness, clicked the latches open. He lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in foam, were three objects: a smooth, rounded stone, a hollow gourd with beads woven around it, and a simple, stretched hide over a wooden frame. A lithophone, a sheker, and a frame drum, Thorne explained warmly, the birthplace of human rhythm. He picked up the drum, his fingers resting lightly on the hide. May I demonstrate the basic principle? Every alarm in Kalan's being screamed, but the protocol was clear. Any potential weapon was to be identified and contained. He needed to see it. He needed to confirm the threat with his own senses. He gave a stiff, single nod. Dr. Thorne smiled. He held the drum aloft, took a small, flexible striker from the case, and raised his hand. Kalan braced, his body instinctively hardening, his auditory dampeners straining to their limit. The striker fell. The sound that emerged was not the loud, terrifying blast Kalan had braced for. It was a soft, warm thump a single, resonant note that hung in the sterile air of the docking bay. And for Kalan, whose entire evolutionary history was written in tremors and deep frequency shifts, it was utterly, devastatingly wrong. It wasn't pain, it was a violation. The frequency, a deep 120 Hz, bypassed his conscious hearing entirely. It traveled through the plating of the deck, up through his stone-like feet, and resonated in the hollow, fluid-filled chambers of his thoracic cavity. His body, exquisitely tuned to interpret such vibrations as pre-earthquake harmonic shifts, reacted on autopilot. A surge of stress chemicals flooded his system. His joints locked. His visual cortex flickered, superimposing a phantom image of cracking station walls. For 3 full seconds, he was not a diplomat in a secure bay, he was a pup in a collapsing burrow. He took a heavy, staggering step back, a low, grinding sound of distress escaping his mandibles. Across the bay, the 2 Glev security personnel, whose biology interpreted sudden pressure waves as violent atmospheric shears, convulsed and folded to the floor, their filament limbs twitching. Dr. Thorne's smile vanished, replaced by shock and confusion. "Delegate, are you unwell?" He looked from Kalan's rigid form to the collapsed Glev, his human mind scrambling for a medical explanation, a pathogen, an atmospheric mismatch. The idea that his simple demonstration was the cause did not even exist as a possibility. Kalan forced his vocal plates to function. "Contain the device." His voice was a strained rasp. "Security Protocol Sigma, now." Alarms klaxons didn't blare. In a galaxy sensitive to sound, emergency signals were pulsed light and vibration. The bay was bathed in a silent, strobing crimson. Panels slid open, and a containment team in full dampening suits emerged, moving not toward Thorne, but toward the open case. With precise, fearful movements, they sealed the drum, the sheker, the lithophone inside a neutral polymer capsule lined with vibration-absorbing gel. Thorne protested, his diplomatic training warring with bewilderment. "What is the meaning of this? This is a cultural gift. This is an outrage." "The outrage, Dr. Thorne," Kalan managed, his systems slowly stabilizing now that the sound had ceased, "is that you have brought a neurological disruptor, unchecked, into the heart of the Galactic Council. Your gift is a Class 4 armament." The human's face cycled through disbelief, offense, and finally, a dawning, horrific comprehension. He'd seen the reports from the asterisk whisper of Dawn asterisk. He dismissed them as bureaucratic mislabeling, a misunderstanding of ceremonial noise. He was a musicologist. He understood sound as math, as emotion, as history, not as a toxin. The next 10 hours were a blur of tense quarantine. The Curiosity was impounded, its broadcast systems physically disconnected. The human crew, bewildered and frustrated, were confined to their quarters, their personal devices confiscated for audio audit. Thorne was isolated in a diplomatic suite, under the watchful, trembling gaze of a Jathal guard who flinched every time the human cleared his throat. Meanwhile, in the council chambers, panic was solidifying into policy. The data from the docking bay incident was dissected. Kalan's biometrics showed a stress profile identical to a Zithian experiencing a magnitude 8 quake. The Glev guards were diagnosed with induced neuromotor fragmentation, a polite term for their brains being temporarily scrambled by a rhythmic signal. The hardliners, led by the ethereal and sound-obsessed choristers of Lyra, demanded immediate action. Their proposal was stark: a full communications blockade of Earth, no broadcasts in or out, all future human vessels to be greeted by remote-piloted drones with strict orders to jam and destroy any outgoing carrier wave containing rhythmic patterns. They argued humanity was a walking bioweapon, its very culture a threat to galactic stability. But Kalan, still recovering in a medical suite, intervened through a secure channel. He appealed not to mercy, but to cold logic. "You saw the human's face," he transmitted, his words appearing on the council screens. "He did not know, they do not know. We are about to declare war on a species for a biological trait they are unaware they possess. A trait that, to them, is akin to the color of their blood. Do we blockade a star because its light gives us a headache? We must make them understand. Then, and only then, can we negotiate a containment they will themselves enforce." His argument, backed by his status as the first victim, carried a brittle weight. A compromise was struck. Thorne would be informed. A controlled, mediated data transfer would be allowed, a one-time dump of the Council's findings, the sensor logs from the asterisk whisper of Dawn asterisk, the medical reports. Humanity would be given the facts. Their response would determine everything. Thorne received the data in his sterile room. He sat for hours, scrolling through it, his face pale. He saw the neurological maps of the Jathal focus group, their brain activity spiraling into chaos as his beloved batch's cello suites played. He watched the video of the Glev delegate seizing to the sound of a simple metronome. He read the dry, clinical diagnosis. Human rhythmic auditory stimulus, HRAS, induces universal non-conscious threat response via amygdala hijack and forced neural entrainment. The terms were alien, but the meaning was devastatingly clear. Every lullaby, every national anthem, every heartbeat-like bassline from 1,000 genres was perceived as aggression, a scream, a weapon. His first reaction was grief, a profound cultural mourning. Then the scientist in him engaged. He requested, and after much debate, was granted a secure link to Earth's Xenolinguistic Council. The transmission was heavily filtered, stripped of all audio, sent as pure text and data. The reaction from Earth was not what the Council expected. There was no denial, no outrage. Instead, a request for clarification, for more data. Then a stunned 24-hour silence. When the reply came, it was not from a diplomat. It was from a joint panel of neurologists, evolutionary biologists, and yes, musicologists. Their message was simple: we believe we understand the mechanism. Request permission to transmit a research summary and a proposed mitigation protocol. The Council, terrified yet curious, approved. The document that arrived rewrote the crisis. Human evolution, it explained, was a story of predator and prey on a loud, dangerous Earth. Rhythm was a survival tool. The steady beat of a heart was safety. The predictable pattern of a walking gait meant a friend, not a stalking predator. Their brains evolved to seek out and sync with rhythm. It signaled community, coordination, safety from the chaotic, arrhythmic sounds of danger. A snapping twig was irregular. A wolf's howl was sustained, not pulsed. But a drumbeat was us asterisk. For a quiet galaxy, the opposite was true. Predictable, rhythmic vibration was unknown in nature. It was an anomaly. And to a nervous system that evolved in serene stability, an anomaly is a threat. The human safety signal was everyone else's panic button. But then came the pivot. The human researchers pinpointed the exact culprit. It was all asterisk sound. It was a specific combination. The transient attack of a percussive hit, followed by a sustained low-frequency resonance between 80 and 200 Hz, delivered in a tempo between 60 and 180 beats per minute. This was the weapon range. Interestingly, human speech, unstructured ambient noise, even most melodic instruments without a percussive bass, had negligible effects. Their mitigation protocol was not an apology, it was a proposal, a galactic audio codec, a filter that could be applied to all human transmissions, scrubbing the dangerous rhythmic signatures while preserving melody and speech. They could, in essence, neuter their own music for export. They offered to build it themselves. The Council was stunned. Instead of belligerence, they received a technical solution. The hardliners were disarmed. A tense hope flickered. Perhaps coexistence was possible. Kalan was tasked with presenting the Council's response to Thorn. He entered the human's suite, his body still humming with residual unease. He found Thorn not despairing, but surrounded by data screens, his eyes alight with a frantic, academic intensity. "Delegate Kalan," Thorn said without preamble, his voice tight. "Your data was invaluable, but my team and we've found an inconsistency, a massive one." He turned a screen. It showed a star map. "You tested our music on 97 Council species. The effect was universal, but your maps are incomplete." He zoomed in on a sector on the far side of the galactic core, a region marked with low-priority exploration tags. "There are documented intelligent species here, pre-warp but observable, the VAR." Kalan's posture stiffened. The VAR, the galaxy's other Death World species, notoriously private, belligerent, and absent from the Council. "Our historical data exchange with the Jathal included some of their anthropological surveys," Thorn continued, his finger tapping the screen. "Passive recordings from VAR broadcasts, news segments, public speeches." He took a breath. "They have rhythm, delegate, complex, percussive rhythm. In their communication, we analyzed it. It falls directly within the weapon range. The implication hung in the silent room. If the universal fear response was truly universal, the VAR should be in constant, agonized distress from their own culture. They were not. They were a thriving, spacefaring power. There are two possibilities, Thorne said, his voice dropping. One, the VAR are immune. Their death world evolution granted them a unique neurological shield, which would make them the only species in the galaxy, besides us, who can tolerate rhythmic sound. He met Kalon's compound eyes. Or possibility two, the effect isn't a flaw in us or in you. It's a specific, targeted vulnerability in Council biology, a common evolutionary blind spot you all share. And if that's true, then what you've classified as our accidental weapon might be someone else's very deliberate defense system. We need to talk to the VAR, and we need to do it before the Council's panic makes a decision we'll all regret. Kalon stared at the star map, the designation for the VAR territories burning like a warning beacon. Of all the species in the galaxy, the VAR were the last anyone wanted to involve. They were not just private, they were isolationist to the point of paranoia. Their border skirmishes with early council probes the stuff of tactical legend. Contact was forbidden, and now this human was suggesting we break that oldest of taboos based on a theory spun from signal noise. You are speaking of decades-old, low-fidelity snippets, Kalon ground out, his unease manifesting as irritation. Ambient noise from their industrial processes misinterpreted. Listen, Thorne said, and before Kalon could protest, he played an audio file. It was a grainy, filtered recording stripped of most frequencies. What remained was a staccato pattern of clicks and thumps underlying a VAR news broadcaster's guttural speech. That's not machine noise. The pattern is isochronous, perfectly timed. It repeats every 0.8 seconds. That's a rhythm, and look here. He brought up a spectral analysis. A faint, pulsed low-frequency carrier wave, almost buried in the static, mirrored the clicks. They're broadcasting on two channels, one for speech, one for this. The evidence was thin, but it was there. A deliberate, rhythmic undercurrent. Kalon felt a cold dread, different from the instinctual fear the drum had triggered. This was intellectual, strategic. If Thorne was right, the entire foundation of the crisis was wrong. This wasn't about containing humanity. It was about understanding why the galaxy was split into two distinct biological camps, those shattered by rhythm and those who wielded it. He took the findings to the Council's Security Committee in a closed, sound-dampened session. The reaction was volcanic denial, then stunned silence. The chorister of Lyra, a being of delicate harmonic crystal, vibrated with distress. You propose that the VAR, the galaxy's acknowledged warriors, are, like asterisk them. The accusation hung at Thorne, who observed quietly from a monitor. It is not a proposal. It is a data point, Kalon insisted. We have defined a universal law of neurology based on a sample that intentionally excludes the one other species from a high-gravity, high-danger world. This is a catastrophic oversight. We must attempt contact, a single, tightly controlled query. The debate raged for hours. The risk was unthinkable. Provoking the VAR could lead to a real war, one with kinetic weapons, not just psychological discomfort. But the alternative, potentially misclassifying a fundamental aspect of galactic biology, was a long-term threat to the Council's very legitimacy. Fear of the unknown finally lost to a deeper fear of being wrong. A plan was forged, codenamed Quiet Step. They would use a derelict Jathal comms buoy on the edge of VAR space, its origins scrubbed. They would send a single, simple message, encoded in the most basic mathematical principles, a series of prime numbers, followed by a single, clean data packet. The packet contained two things: the spectral analysis of the human drumbeat that harmed the Council, and the spectral analysis of the rhythmic pulse from the VAR broadcast. The message was a question without words. Are these the same? The boy fired the transmission into the dark. Then they waited. Council intelligence suggested VAR response times could be swift and violent. Patrols were put on high alert. The Curiosity and its crew remained in lockdown, now seen not just as carriers of a weapon, but as possible keys to a terrifying puzzle. 73 hours later, the derelict boy received a reply, not a weapons discharge, a data burst. It was larger than the query. When decoded, it contained no language, no images. It contained audio, two audio files. The first was a recording of the human drum spectral analysis they had sent, but it had been altered. The rhythm was the same, but the resonance had been subtly shaped, the frequencies modulated. A note from the VAR translator, using Stark Council standard, accompanied it, perceived harmonic instability. Source, improper resonance coupling. The second file was raw, unfiltered VAR audio. It was a cacophony to Council sensors, a roaring, grinding, percussive symphony of deep strikes, metallic shrieks, and a pounding, relentless bass rhythm that made the monitoring J-Thal technician faint. But alongside it, the VAR had provided their own spectral analysis. Their rhythm was structurally identical to the dangerous human pattern in tempo and frequency. But their analysis highlighted a stabilizing waveform overlaid on top of it, a counter-frequency that neutralized the chaotic resonance. Thorn, watching the data stream in, let out a shuddering breath. A damping wave. They don't just use rhythm, they control its harmonic effects. They've engineered the instability out. But it was the third component of the transmission that changed everything. A final, succinct message. Your sample is primitive, uncontrolled emission. The tool is not the weapon. The mind behind it is. We have monitored your humanity. Their world sings the same songs as the ancient dark. We will speak with them, not with you. The VAR weren't just immune. They were experts. And they were demanding direct parley with the one species the Council had just declared a bioweapon. Panic erupted anew, but it was a different flavor. This was no longer about public health. It was about galactic power dynamics. The VAR recognizing humanity as, what, kin, potential allies. The Council saw a nightmare scenario forming, an alliance between the two deadliest, most rhythmically attuned species in the galaxy, while the rest of them cowered from the noise. Kalan was summoned before the full council. The atmosphere was frigid with terror. The chorister spoke, its melodic voice now sharp. This proves the danger is even greater than we feared. The human trait is not an accident. It is a marker of a certain, violent predisposition. The VAR confirm it. We must enact the full blockade immediately. We must isolate Earth before this contact occurs. Thorn's voice, piped from his confinement, cut in. Or you could see this as an opportunity. They've given us the blueprint, the damping wave. If we can understand their technique, we can build a real shield, not just a filter. We can fix this. Fix us, asterisk, you mean, the chorister retorted. You see our biology as a flaw to be corrected with more of your violent science. The debate dissolved into chaos. Kalan stood silently, processing the brutal realpolitik. The Council would never allow unsupervised contact between humanity and the VAR. The risks were too high, but blocking it would make humanity an enemy and likely provoke the VAR. They were trapped. It was then that a separate priority alert flashed on Kalan's private terminal. It was from long-range monitoring. A single vessel had just translated from warp at the extreme edge of the system. It was not a Council design. Its energy signature was brutish, high-yield, and familiar from old battle reports. It was a VAR scout ship, and it was not heading for the Council station. Its trajectory was a direct, uncompromising line toward the quarantined asterisk Curiosity asterisk. They hadn't waited for a reply. They had come to collect their conversation partners. The Council chamber descended into outright bedlam. Security protocols clashed with diplomatic ones. The station's defensive systems hummed to life, but orders to fire were withheld. Nobody wanted to be the one who started a war with the VAR. Kalan made a decision. He left the chamber, ignoring the shouts behind him. He moved quickly to the secure docking umbilical that connected to the asterisk Curiosity asterisk. He had one card left to play. He entered the human ship, bypassing its startled crew, and went straight to Thorn's impounded quarters. The human was on his feet, having seen the same alerts. "They're here," Thorn said, his face a mask of anxiety and wild hope. "Listen to me," Kalan said, his voice low and urgent. "The Council will either try to destroy that ship, sparking a war, or they will let it take you, losing all leverage. There is a third option, but it requires you to trust me, and it requires you to do exactly what I say." Thorne nodded, his scientist's curiosity overriding his fear. What is it? You will go out there in a shuttle, alone. You will meet them in the space between. You will be the conduit, but you will wear a full-spectrum biometric monitor, and your shuttle will be remotely piloted by *me*. The Council gets a live feed of everything. They hear every word. They see every interaction. The VAR get their direct contact, and we get to learn what this is really about. Do you understand? You will be a walking listening device. Thorne paled. He was a musicologist, not a spy. He was to be the bait and the wire in a first-contact scenario with the most feared warriors in the galaxy. He looked out the viewport at the distant, angular speck of the VAR vessel growing larger. He swallowed, then looked back at Kalan, a grim determination settling on his features. What's the playlist for a mission like this? Silence, Kalan said. Absolute perfect silence. Now come, we have very little time. The shuttle bay doors sealed behind Thorne with a final, hollow clang. He sat in the pilot's chair, his hands resting on his knees, taking slow, deliberate breaths. The cockpit was a bubble of pure silence, save for the hum of life support and the faint, tinny voice of Kalan in his earpiece. Remember, no sound from you unless absolutely necessary. We are routing all communication through text translation on your screen. The dampening field is at maximum. They are waiting. Through the viewport, the vast ship filled his vision. It wasn't sleek or elegant. It was angular, armored, and studded with what looked like massive, parabolic dishes. Not for listening, he realized with a chill, for projecting. Small shuttle was drawn into a cavernous landing bay by a tractor beam. The gravity here was heavy, familiar, Earth-like. The bay was dark, lit by stark orange work lights, and empty save for a single towering figure standing in the center. The VAR delegate. It was even more imposing in person. 7 feet tall, covered in thick obsidian black scales that seemed to absorb the light. Its face was a predator's mask, with a prominent brow ridge and deep-set eyes that glowed with a faint amber light. It stood perfectly still, waiting. Thorne exited the shuttle, his movements slightly sluggish under the increased gravity. He stopped a respectful distance away. A screen on the wall beside the VAR flickered to life, displaying text in both Galactic Standard and English. I am VAR Kotha. You are the human who understands the old noise. Thorne took a small tablet from his belt, typing his reply. The words appeared on the same screen. I am Dr. Aris Thorne. I study sound. We do not understand. We wish to. Kotha's head tilted, a surprisingly avian gesture. A low, rumbling vibration emanated from him, felt through the deck plates more than heard. The screen updated. You use the noise as a binding agent, for social cohesion, for memory. You build your cultures upon it. You are young in the dark. Thorne typed, his fingers trembling slightly. The Galactic Council says our noise is a weapon. It causes them harm. Kotha let out a sharper rumble, a sound that translated as something between a scoff and a growl. The silent ones, they evolved in the quiet places. They think stillness is peace. They are wrong. The universe is not silent. It screams. You hear a piece of the scream and call it music. They hear it and call it pain. They are not wrong to fear it. They are wrong to hide from it. This was the pivot. Thorne leaned forward, forgetting his fear in his hunger for understanding. What is the scream? Kotha was silent for a long moment. Then he gestured with a clawed hand. A holographic display activated between them, showing a map of the galaxy. It was overlaid with a faint, pulsating network of light, like a neural web. The substrate, the foundation of reality at a certain scale resonates. Your scientists will find it in quantum field fluctuations. We call it the Great Vibration. Most life in this galaxy evolved to filter it out, to exist in the silence between the waves. Your world and ours did not. The image zoomed in on Earth and the VAR homeworld. Both planets were located at nexuses where this resonant web was particularly dense, agitated by gravitational tides from nearby stellar clusters or dark matter filaments. On such worlds, life that could not sense the vibration, could not predict its rhythms, was torn apart. It creates instability in neural matter. Chaos. Your ancestors and ours did not filter it out. We incorporated it. We built our neural architecture upon its rhythm. It became our foundation. To us and to you, its rhythm is stability. It is the heartbeat of existence. Thorne stared, his mind reeling. The The dangerous rhythm wasn't something humanity invented. They were tuning forks, resonating with a fundamental frequency of the universe that most species had to ignore to survive. Their music was a refined, artistic echo of the cosmos itself. The Silent Ones, Kotha continued, the text scrolling, when they hear your refined echoes, their brains do something catastrophic. They try to process what they evolved to block. It is like forcing a blind eye to see. It causes systemic shock. Your weapon is merely a mirror, showing them the terrifying reality they built their existence upon denying. Thorn typed, the implications dawning with horrific clarity, so our very presence, our broadcasts, are a constant low-grade trauma to their civilization. Kotha confirmed, unintended, but real. Your proposed filter is a bandage. It will let you whisper in their silent rooms, but it does not change the fundamental discord. What is the solution? Thorn asked, despair creeping in. Kotha's amber eyes seemed to intensify. There is none, only management. We have managed by staying apart, by letting the Silent Ones have their quiet galaxy. We use the damping wave not for them, but for ourselves, to refine the raw scream into useful, controlled signal, for communication, for measurement. You have used it for art. This is interesting to us. It suggests a different application of the same principle. The Va saw humanity not as a threat, but as an intriguing, albeit naive, experiment. They had mastered rhythm as a tool. Humanity had stumbled into worshipping it as a god. You asked why we contacted you, Kotha's final message scrolled. 2 reasons. First, you are a new variable in a stable if fragile system. We monitor such things. Second, your music is unstructured, emotional, unpredictable. It is the raw scream shaped by feeling, not engineering. We have no analog. We wish to study it, to understand the data of your emotion. It wasn't a military alliance they sought. It was a cultural exchange, a scientific one. They wanted humanity's art as a dataset. Thorn returned to the council station, his mind buzzing with the cosmic scale of the revelation. He presented the data, the recordings, the translated logs. The chamber was dead silent. The chorister of Lyra looked shattered. Their entire peaceful existence was framed as an evolutionary avoidance mechanism, a denial of a noisy universe. The hardliners had no argument left. You couldn't declare war on a fundamental law of physics. The blockade plan was scrapped, not out of compassion, but out of futile recognition. A new, awkward framework was established. Humanity would deploy the Galactic audio codec, the filter, on all outgoing transmissions. It was a courtesy, like speaking softly in a library. Earth's music, for internal use only, was classified as a controlled cultural artifact. The Va, in turn, agreed to a formal, if distant, channel of communication with humanity, not the Council. They would share the principles of the damping wave technology, allowing humans to build quiet zones for interstellar diplomacy. Kalan found Thorn in the departure bay, the human preparing to return to the Curiosity *. So, the Zithian rumbled, we are not at war. We have simply learned that the universe is fundamentally uncomfortable for my kind, and your people are a walking reminder of that fact. An elegant solution. Thorn managed a tired smile. It's not a solution, it's an accommodation. We have to live with a fundamental incompatibility, but at least now we know what it is. As Thorn's ship departed, Kalan looked out at the stars. The silence of the station, once a comfort, now felt different. It felt chosen, deliberate, a bubble against a roaring cosmos. He thought of the human's music not as a weapon, but as a brave, foolish, beautiful attempt to sing along with the scream of the universe itself. He found he did not hate it, he pitied it, and in a way, he envied it. Back on the Curiosity *, Thorn sat in his cabin. He opened a private, shielded archive on his terminal. It was filled with unfiltered music files, symphonies, rock anthems, jazz improvisations, the raw scream shaped by emotion. He selected one, a simple, powerful piece by a 20th century composer, all drums and bass. He did not play it. He simply looked at the waveform on the screen, a chaotic, beautiful mountain range of peaks and valleys. He typed a final log entry. We are not weapons, we are witnesses. Our crime is that we heard the music of the spheres and we dared to dance to it. The galaxy may never join us on the dance floor, But perhaps, in time, they will stop covering their ears. He saved the log and opened a new file. He began sketching the initial design for the first interspecies concert hall, a structure built with VAR-damping wave technology, where humanity could finally share its art, not as an attack, but as an offering in a room safe enough for the silent ones to finally listen. The first sound accord, as the treaty was formally named, did not bring harmony. It brought a tense, careful quiet. Earth's broadcasts into the galaxy are now pre-filtered, scrubbed of the dangerous resonances that are the backbone of our art. We speak in whispers to our new neighbors, but within our own borders, the music still plays. The Galactic Council, in its official bulletins, lists humanity as a conditionally compatible species. The condition is silence. Our greatest cultural export is now considered a controlled substance, like a potent spice or a dangerous fuel. We are the universe's librarians of a book no one else can safely read. Yet from this strange arrangement, new things have begun to grow. The VAR-damping wave technology, shared in strict confidence, has allowed the construction of the first truly interspecies venues, vaults of perfect sonic nullity, where a human quartet can perform and a Zithian or a Jathal delegate can observe through vibration-translated visualizations, experiencing the shape of the music without its sting. It is art viewed through a thick pane of glass, but it is contact. Dr. Aris Thorne leads this effort. The concert hall he designed, the Resonance Chamber, opened last year on a neutral asteroid. The first performance was a string quartet playing a piece by a human composer named Philip Glass. Its repetitive, minimalist structures were chosen for their clarity. Afterward, Delegate Kalan was quoted in the logs, saying, "I perceived a pattern of great mathematical precision and a reported emotional response of calm in the creators. The two do not compute for me, but I am glad to have witnessed the attempt." This is where we stand, not as warriors, not as weapons, but as an anomaly, a species that built its soul around a frequency that is, to most intelligent life, indistinguishable from terror. Our struggle is no longer for dominance, but for translation, for finding a way to express the inexpressible to those who cannot hear it. The lingering question, the one that keeps xenopsychologists awake, is this: was our evolution a fluke, a random alignment with a cosmic vibration, or was it, as some human philosophers and more than a few VAR theorists suggest, a necessity that a universe this vast and noisy needed at least one listener, not to hide from the scream, but to hear it, to name it, and in naming it, begin to understand it? We may never be fully understood. Our parties will never be galactic events. Our songs will never top the charts on 100 worlds. But in a silent corner of the galaxy, we are building a room where we can safely share our noise. And sometimes, in the right light, you can see a Zithian delegate, stone still, watching the visualized waveform of a drum circle, and if you look very closely, you might see the subtlest vibration in its sturdy frame. Not a flinch of fear, a tremor of fascination. A silent echo trying to answer back. The universe is louder than we ever imagined, and we are no longer singing alone. Thanks for listening. If you want to hear more stories from the edges of what it means to be human in a strange cosmos, make sure to subscribe.